back up our scriptures a little bit this morning because Gabriel was a busy guy. He actually had to deliver a message before the one we just heard about. He was sent to the priest Zechariah. Zechariah was married to Elizabeth, and they were both, what we would say, getting on in years. The angel appeared to Zechariah, and Zechariah heard the message and said, I don't believe it. For which he was struck dumb for the next 9 months until the birth of his son. Don't mess with me. How can this be? Really, isn't that the question for this Christmas? How can this be? Mary is a woman of no special position within the faithful people of Nazareth, yes. But she's not held up as particularly religious. Her identity within her community is not well known in the general populace. And she's not called a pious woman. She's just an ordinary citizen. Mary seems to be like you and me. So why is it that the angel Gabriel has a message for her? We recognize that Mary, in contrast to the elevated status of Zechariah, is a young woman. A young woman in a time that values age. Female in a world ruled by men. Poor in a highly stratified economy. Furthermore, she has no husband or child to validate her existence. And within her society, she's actually of little value. Why her? Now, Gabriel's announcement of what is to be is surely one of the most exalted things that happens in Scripture. For with the birth of Jesus, the fulfillment of God's promise throughout the ages has come to pass. The Messiah, so longed for throughout the history of all God's people, gathers together the reign of David and the promise of life for Israel. And it's no wonder Mary responds, how can this be? How can this be is the same question that reverberates within us anytime that we receive startling or surprising news. It's the question that also informs and shapes our faith, for it brings each of us to that place where we must respond. If we, like Zechariah, say, I don't believe it, it's not possible, then there's really little room to let it happen. If we can answer as Mary, here am I, the servant of the Lord, then God's infinite possibilities become ours also. We've heard a lot of sad and really bad news recently. Let me say the name of some places. Ferguson, New York City, St. Louis, Chicago, Washington, D.C. I dare say a lot of violent images come to your mind. Yet, I was stunned this week to read a news story taking place in Jefferson County, Missouri. Jefferson County encompasses Kansas City, Missouri, and all the suburbs around it. It seems that in Jefferson County, there is a very successful businessman who is philanthropic by nature and has, over the past many years, given cash gifts of $100 to some ordinary folks living on the edge who are struggling. But in these recent developments of charges of police brutality and rioting citizenry, this person, known by the people of the area as Secret Santa, had a new idea. Enlisting the service of the Jefferson County Sheriffs, he took his piles of $100 bills, gave 1,000 of them out to the sheriffs with instructions to please target those people in vehicles who looked like they were struggling. Having been at a time in my life much earlier, thanks be to God, an owner of one of those kinds of cars, you know, they're rusting through, the paint's falling off, they've lost their shine, and you pray that the tires are good enough to get you through the next month. Target those people and pull them over. Now imagine, what did it feel like to the drivers of those cars? What am I getting pulled over for? I didn't do anything wrong. And their blood pressure rises, of course. So imagine what they felt when the sheriff said, "Merry Christmas," and handed them $100. When the philanthropist was asked why he organized this kind of delivery system, he said, "I think that both the sheriffs and the drivers could know some joy and give the law officers a chance to be a bearer of good news." And that, my friends, is what we are called to do. We are to bear the good news. In Greek, the bearer of God, the bearer of the good news, is known as Theotokos. You are Theotokos. The one who brings God into this world in the presence of all of us, brings God to dwell among us. And God calls us to this and plants challenges and opportunities in our everyday paths in order that this will happen. And how will you answer? What will you say? How can this be? We can say it with the surprise of our mind. Here I am. We can say with the joy of our heart. This is a story that's 2,000 years old, and yet it's as fresh as this very day. How each of us can embrace God's message is significant to all of our lives, and how we respond to God's invitation to be God bearers is just the beginning of it. Dare we believe that God breaks into our lives and that we too can be Theotokos, the bearer of God's presence? Have we the courage to say, "Here am I, servant of the Lord"? Can we live as though we believe that God restores and redeems all of the mess that we leave in our wake as we crash through life? And in doing so, we convince others that they too can be included. Can we show, "Let it be with me according to your word"? For we, like Mary, have been called to carry the gift that is Christ into the midst of this hurting world. The lowly still need lifting up. The hungry need to be fed. The poor need a chance to live with dignity. And the displaced refugee needs to be resettled. This world still hungers in its heart for the true goodness to reign supreme. And can we answer? Nothing will be impossible with God. For God's infinite possibilities become ours. Each time we respond, "Here am I." The mystery and miracle that is Christmas is just around the corner. And our invitation to participate is on its way. We're invited to be like Mary, to receive the gift of Christ within us and among us with glad and joyful hearts. We are invited, like Mary, to bear the good news of the gift of Christ into the whole world. God, give us the courage